The Epic of King Taranis. Gather round, my brothers of the north, and I will tell you a tale, while the wind howls in the snow and the wolves sing to the night god. Hear a tale of the true north and its greatest king. Lineth was of the wolf tribe, and she was daughter to the mad storyteller Tragan and one-eyed Meerwen the wise woman. She was wedded to the great hunter Griffith, who slew the mighty Wulfereth in a battle that lasted 6 days and nights, and her heart was fierce and proud. The day came that Lineth, who was with child, left the shores of the homeland and sailed southward, driven away by the magic of the evil snake tribe. Griffith went with her, and all the wolves, seeking a new home which Meerwen had seen in a vision granted by the night god. For 40 days and 40 nights they sailed, and one night a terrible storm came upon them. A sea serpent rose from the waves, its head crowned by lightning, and Lineth and Griffith did battle against the beast, she with the magic which Meerwen had taught her, and he with the spear which had slain Fereth. All night they fought, while the storm struck at the boats, and thunder roared like a lion, and for every blow they struck, the serpent's fangs took another of their friends. But then an idea came to Griffith, and he gave his spear to Lineth, who blessed it with her magic, which was the mystical touch of the night god herself, and the bringer of death. Then, with a mighty roar, Griffith hurled the spear into the serpent's eye, and the beast was finally slain. But as it returned to the ocean, it took the blessed spear with it, and though many have sought it, it has never been found. Then, as their friends rejoiced in victory, Lineth lay down beneath the storm, and there gave birth to a son, and her mother's blood mingled with the rain. The child's first cries were lost among the thunder, and the lightning flashed in his eyes, and Lineth knew at once that it was a sign. "My son shall be a mighty warrior of the north," she cried, "and Taranis shall be his name, for he shall be a true man of Tara, and in our new homeland he of all others shall be our rightful ruler, for the night god wills it." Then the sun rose once more, and the storm abated, and Griffith saw the shores of a new land. He at once named it Cimmeria, and he was the first to swim ashore. Cimmeria was a rich country, but there was much danger within it. Savage griffins hunted man and woman alike, and the dark men of the plains brought disease, and from the south pale-haired barbarians came raiding. Taranis grew well, though, and when the boy was old enough, his father taught him the art of combat. He fought in many great battles, and at the place called Tor Plain he slew 50 southerners and collected their heads, so that their aid or spirit would serve him for evermore. But Taranis' ambition was great as his arm was strong, and so it was that one day he sought to master the art of magic. Yet the skill was not in him, and no matter how hard he struggled, magic was not his to wield. In his frustration he retreated to the wild, hoping that the night god's eye would shine upon him there. He took only his spear and sickle, so that he may hunt for his food, and told none of his purpose. For 6 nights he travelled alone through the dark forests, where the ghost trees grew, and there in a hidden gorge he found a cave. Within it lived a man, a giant, whose eyes were silver as new coins. "What man are you," Taranis cried, "that your eyes are so?" "My name is Taliesin, and the gift of magic is mine," the giant replied. And Taranis saw the fur and feathers that grew upon Taliesin's skin, and knew that he faced no ordinary man. "I seek the gift of magic," he said. "Give it to me." Taliesin laughed deep and booming and said, "Nay, magic is mine and mine alone. Fight me if you will, but you shall never defeat one such as I." And Taranis' pride was wounded by Taliesin's words, and his lust for battle rose. He took out his spear and sickle and said, "I accept your challenge, and I shall defeat you, creature, for none can stand against me." Taliesin carried no weapon, yet he struck the first blow with the great long claws that were on his hands, and Taranis was sorely wounded. But Taranis struck back fearlessly, wounding him in return, and he was quick and strong. They exchanged blow for blow, but neither could prevail, and neither would surrender, for both were proud and haughty of spirit, and their courage was equally great. The moon rose and fell once more, and the blood streamed from the limbs of those 2 great warriors, and sweat gleamed upon their brows. At last Taliesin fell, but Taranis fell also, and neither one had the strength to strike another blow. Taranis said, "I fear that neither of us has prevailed in this battle, for neither of us will accept defeat." "I would admit defeat to none, even if it came at the cost of my death," Taliesin replied. "Yet I see now that you are the same, Taranis. You have not defeated me, but you have earned my respect as none other has. Therefore I offer you not my surrender, but my friendship. I will fight beside you with all my magic and my great strength, and your enemies shall be mine." And Taranis felt great joy and triumph, and he said, You are a great warrior, Taliesin, and you honour me by your words. Let us ride into battle together, and those we fight shall fall before us as wheat falls beneath the farmer's sickle." So Taranis and Taliesin left the forest together, and when the people saw them they were in awe. But the chiefs of the tribes that had followed the wolves to Cimmeria grew jealous, and sought to drive Taranis away with lies and threats, for they did not want their people to follow him. Yet in his cunning Taranis knew what to do. "Come," he said, "come to the flat mountain by the gorge where Taliesin lives, and there we may talk and settle these troubles that have come between us." So the chiefs gathered, 13 in all, and they stood in a ring at the peak of that lonely mountain, waiting for Taranis to come to them. Taranis and Taliesin came together, and they stood at the centre of that circle. And Taranis said, "Our people must fight as one if we are to take Cimmeria for ourselves, and defeat the men of the south. There must be a single leader to bind us together, and I shall be that leader, for the night god has willed it." The chief of the bear tribe, who was a mighty warrior, held up her axe and said, "You lie, Taranis. You are no more than a foolish boy who seeks glory for himself. The night god would never choose one such as you." The others shouted agreement, even the chief of the wolf tribe, who was Taranis' friend. Some sought to threaten Taranis again, saying that he must be beheaded for blasphemy at once. But Taranis was not afraid. He faced his accusers with pride and said, "I am no boy, but a warrior of the wolf tribe, and the gift of magic is mine." Then Taliesin laughed with a sound like thunder, and breathed his magic upon the 13 chiefs, and at once every one of them turned to stone. And there they stand to this day, a ring of stones named Taranis' throne. There at the circle of stones the people proclaimed Taranis as their rightful leader, and blessed of the night god, and so he was named King Taranis, master of all northerners. Treasures and praise heaped upon Taranis, and he soon found a bride, the most wise and beautiful Venora, who was learned in magic and a cunning adviser, for it was she who battled the heartless demon that had tried to deceive her people, and rallied the warriors to slay him. Now Taranis gathered his warriors and said, "It is time now for our great conquest to begin. We shall march upon the mountains of Icastel, and beyond it to the south. We will crush the pale-haired men of the south, and their lands shall be ours. Gather your weapons, my friends, and I will lead you to a glorious victory." So Taranis' friends and followers raised their sickles and declared themselves ready, and that they would follow him until death. Proud King Taranis set forth with his warriors on his path of conquest. Taliesin was at his side, and Venora also. Those of the bear tribe carried axes, and the deer bore arrows and bows, and the wolves carried spears and sickles, for they were the greatest of warriors. They came to the pass at the mountains of Icastel, and there stood an old man who leaned upon a staff. The old man spoke, saying, "I bring you this warning now, King Taranis. You must not ride south, for if you do, death and ruin shall be your only reward." "And who are you that you give me this warning, old man?" Taranis replied. "My name is Araneth, and I am a sage, whose eyes look upon the future," the old man said. "Heed my warning, King Taranis, or you and your people shall suffer for your foolishness." But Taranis was proud of heart, and the sage's words offended him, and so he named Araneth a traitor, and had him impaled upon a stake. And Araneth stayed there to die upon it, while Taranis and his great warriors marched on to seek their conquest. Now it happened that the men of the south had a leader of their own, a man whose name was Baraga. It was he who had led his people to Cimmeria, and he was anointed to lead them by the hand of Griffiths, the cruel and arrogant god of the sun. He wielded a mighty sword, which was the weapon of his people, and the blade of that sword shone with the golden light of the sun. It happened that Baraga was not far from Icastel when King Taranis rode forth, but he was taken unaware, for he had thought that his enemies in the north were a divided people. King Taranis and his warriors fell upon the first village in their path, and there they slew every man and child, and the women who were too old, though the young maidens who had not known the touch of a man were kept to serve them as the rightful spoils of war. When Baraga heard of King Taranis' great victory, he ran to challenge him, and found nothing but the ruins which Taranis had left in his wake, where the dead lay among the burned houses and the ravens feasted. Baraga was filled with rage, and he declared that he would face Taranis in battle and best him, for none could stand before his sword and prevail. He gathered his own warriors and set off in pursuit, and in such haste that his followers had no time to prepare. Yet Baraga felt no fear, for he was certain of victory. Taranis led his friends to the southwest, and then to the southeast, and there were none who could stand in his way. The southerners fled before him like frightened rabbits, and Taranis burned their homes and seized their food and treasures. Taliesin fought by his side as his most loyal friend, asking for nothing in return, and Taranis was content that it should be so. Venora too was content that Taliesin should serve him, and praised her husband for winning the giant's allegiance. And yet Taliesin grew restless, and began to long for the wilds that were his home, and he asked Taranis if he may return to the forest. Taranis, proud of heart, spurned his friend. "You promised to fight beside me, and you must keep that promise," he said. "Be steadfast, and together we shall prevail." Taliesin did not protest, though there was a resentment in him, and he fought with more ferocity than ever before, wielding both claw and magic. Many more times the Southerners fell before them, and King Taranis' warriors declared that he was the mightiest of all, and the conqueror who would crush all their enemies and defeat every challenger who dared come before him. King Taranis led his people west then to a place called Canran, where there were rich mines and a river that flowed with golden feathers. There they won another great victory, but Taliesin was gravely wounded. He said that he must rest and heal, but Venora said, "Are you so weak, Taliesin, or do you feign weakness because you fear another battle?" Taranis was impatient, and declared that they must not linger in Canran, for more conquest awaited. "I must rest, or I will die," Taliesin said. "Is your magic not strength enough?" Taranis mocked at him. "My magic cannot heal me when I am wounded," Taliesin said, but Taranis did not believe him. He laughed at his friend, declaring him weak, and at last he said, "Perhaps I should go on without you. I am a mighty conqueror. I need no help from you." Taliesin's anger rose, and he said, "If you would conquer Cimmeria without me, then so be it. You have earned my anger, and my friendship is no longer yours." Taranis felt doubt then, but Venora said, "Let him go, for you are no true warrior if you rely upon others. You may defeat the enemy alone, by your own courage, and with nothing to aid you but my love." Taranis heard her words, and his love for her blinded him. "Go then, Taliesin," he said. "I need your help no more. Return to your cave and never come back." Taliesin laughed at him, and his voice was harsh and booming. "Magicless fool," he said, "you will fail, but I shall not care." And so Taliesin went away into the wilds, and Taranis watched him go in silence, though there was doubt in his heart and sadness also. Yet Venora came to him and embraced him, and her love soothed his loss. With anger burning within him, Taranis gathered his warriors and went to a place called Loran Hill, where there was good earth and game in abundance, but not a man in sight. When he looked upon that place, Taranis' heart grew heavy once more, and he commanded his warriors to build wooden walls in a circle at the top of the hill, where they would be protected. While his followers worked, Taranis walked alone into the forest, but he was gripped by melancholy and confusion. The moon shone bright above, for the night god's eye was wide and staring down from the heavens, and its light fell upon him. In a silent clearing by a pool, Taranis stared into the sky and said, "Taliesin, you were a brother to me. I cannot be without you, and I miss your friendship dearly. I wish that you would return to me." As he spoke, the shadows before him shifted, and a terrible figure appeared. He was a young man with a scar on his face, whose eyes were as death. He wore a robe woven of darkness, and there was a shining sickle in his hand. "What man are you?" Taranis cried. The stranger laughed at him in cruel mockery and said, "It is I, Araneth the sage. You murdered me, yet now I am reborn, made young and strong once more." "That cannot be," Taranis said. "Yet it is so by the will of the night god," Araneth replied. "You did not heed my warning, and by the sinking of the sun tomorrow your doom will come upon you, and the doom of all your people." Fear was upon Taranis then, but he raised his sickle and said, "That shall not be. I am king, and blessed of the night god, and she will protect me." "Nay," said Araneth, "she has abandoned you. There are none who can save you now, proud Taranis." Then Araneth wrapped his robe about himself, and at once he had become as a shadow, and that shadow disappeared as if it had never been. Taranis could see no more, and he returned to his warriors alone, telling no one of his vision. That night he turned to Venora and fiercely made love to her, until the sun began to rise from the island of Griffiths, and in that night they conceived a son. Afterwards Taranis said, "Venora, you must return home. Carry our son to the north and raise him there, and I shall be with you always." "Why would you ask this of me?" Venora said. "Am I not your wife?" "You are my wife and my love, and I ask you to do this for me," Taranis replied. "It is you who must protect my son." Venora wept, but she promised to do as he had asked, and before the sun was at its highest, she left with 2 of the bravest bear warriors to protect her. Now Taranis sharpened his sickle and waited, and when his friends asked what they would leave, he did not reply. Then at last, when the sun reached its zenith, the men of the south could be seen marching from the west. Barriger was at their head, his hair red as fire, and in his hands was the golden sword of Griffiths. He called out in his great voice, King Taranis, you have murdered my people and burned their homes. Now you must face me, for I am Baraga the Blessed, and I am anointed by Griffiths himself." Taranis was afraid then, but he showed no sign of it upon his face. "You cannot defeat me, fool whose hair is cursed red," he cried. "Face me, and you shall fall before my sickle." Taranis' warriors attacked with arrows and javelins, and hurled stones from the walls they had made. 100 Southerners were struck dead at once, but no weapon could harm Baraga, for a halo of sunlight protected him from every missile. Taranis' warriors, seeing this, were much afraid, but Taranis said, "Hold fast, my friends, for I shall fight him. He is mine to slay." "Can you hope to face him without Taliesin at your side?" one warrior dared to ask. With a roar, Taranis struck her down. "I need none to help me," he cried, "not him, nor the night god herself." So saying, he left the safety of those walls upon Liran Hill with his sickle and spear, and Baraga awaited him upon the field. "Fool," he said, "your blood is mine." "Nay," said Taranis, "it is yours that shall be mine." Then Taranis hurled his spear at Baraga with all his power, but it crumbled into ashes at once. Baraga struck back with his sword, and though Taranis knocked it aside, a great crack ran down the blade of his sickle. Baraga laughed, but Taranis struck back with great speed, and his sickle found his enemy, and slit a great wound upon his throat, which left him forever mute. With blood running from his wound, Baraga brought his sword about in a circle of golden light, and with one blow he cut great King Taranis in two. Taranis fell and could not rise again, though he yet lived, and his warriors streamed out into the plain, crying his name. They attacked the Southerners as one, but now their strength was failing, and none could stand against Baraga. He struck down 100 brave warriors and never took another wound. And at last King Taranis' friends were defeated, and without him their courage broke. They threw down their weapons and surrendered, crying out in despair. Taranis saw them and cried out for them to fight on, but none would heed him. He saw his friends put in chains and taken from the bloody field, and Baraga led his own followers away. Now only Taranis was on that plain, wounded and slowly dying, with his broken sickle in his hand, and he saw the sun sinking while his enemies cried out their victory, and he knew that his doom and the doom of his people had come. And yet when the darkness another came to him, and it was a young man who wore a robe of absolute blackness with a scar upon his face. "Your doom has come, as I foretold," he said, "and now darkness has fallen on our people. The sun and his people will own this land, and your subjects shall be their slaves." "That cannot be," Taranis cried. "There must be a way." "It is too late," said the man, who was Araneth the sage. Now there were tears upon Taranis' face. "I have been a fool," he said. "My pride has been my undoing. But must it also be theirs? Are there none who can fight for them now?" "One day there shall be," said Araneth. "I promise you this. Though our people shall lie under the yoke of slavery and oppression, the day will come when you will return to them. When you are reborn, that day shall be the day when we rise again." Then Taranis was glad, and he said, "Thank you for your wisdom, Araneth. I did not heed you, but others shall." "In time, if they have the ears to hear my wisdom, they shall," said Araneth. "But now you must come with me, King Taranis, and I shall guide you to your rest. There I shall teach you all I know, that you will be ready on the day of your return." So the sage took King Taranis by the hand, and together they departed the realm of the living, and were lost to the world they had known. And though our people now lie in darkness and oppression, we wait faithfully for the day when the night god shall shine upon us once more. For on that day the great King Taranis shall return to his throne, and all will be as it should be once more. May the night god bless and keep you from the void, and may you live to see that glorious day, O brothers of the North.